Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Enrique Castro. I'm the president of Reading Pride Celebration. And today we observe National Day of Silence. We join GSAs around the country um, in his stand for unity, unity against bullying. And we spent the day being quiet. Tonight we break our silence for a very important event, and that's really for children. Children aren't born with hate in their hearts. They learn that from the people around them that influence them. And learning that people are different and we can still be friends, we can still love each other, really is the start to putting an end to bullying. Tonight, we're pleased, as on behalf of the organization, to welcome Matt Haslam, a local author, activist, and educator, also known as Professor Pride, as you guys may have noticed from the video before we started. So he's going to be sharing with us his book, his first LGBTQ book called Shadow's First Christmas. And I have my copy here. And I have to say, I love the book. My children love the book. And this was especially special for me and my children because there's many obstacles with being a parent, but one of the obstacles of being a gay parent is finding content that shows your children that there's family like theirs. And probably the best gift that I ever received was when we adopted our children. It was a book called And Tango Makes Two. And that was the only book that I had that really shared with our children that, some families are different. Some families have two dads, some families have two moms. And then I found this book written by Matt, who's, as I said, a local activist. So he's a neighbor of ours up in Schuylkill County. And Shadow, for the first time, had parents and they happened to be um, of the same sex. And so it was very special for me to find yet another book that my family could identify with and I could share with my children. They would really see that, families are different. They come in all shapes and sizes. And our family is special just like anyone else's. So thank you, Matt, for sharing this story with us and for reading it with us tonight. So, as I said, the best thing we can do to stop bullying is really educate our kids. Once we do that and we educate our kids, we'll be able to continue living a life where we can love without fear, show affection, without being worried about the hatred that comes behind it. Because children won't do that automatically. As I said, they learn that from the people that surround them. So, with that, thank you again for joining us. I do hope you enjoy the story. And Matt is going to stick around afterward to answer some questions for all of us. Thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Matt.
Well, hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me onto the broadcast tonight. Thank you to Jose and Enrique for putting all this together. I know it was a lot of work behind the scenes, and they had a lot going on. I also want to first start off by thanking the entire Reading Pride Celebration Board of Directors for the opportunity to share my story with the world on their platform and to celebrate National Day of Silence. It's a day that we join with GLESEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network, in protesting for the inclusion of LGBTQ education in all schools across the country and around the world, both public and private. So it's a massively important day that we need to stand up and speak out for education. Because as he said, we need education in order to stop bullying, and we need to help people understand how normal it is to be gay. And I hope through my show and through the new book, Shadow's First Christmas, I get to play a small role in that. So with all that said, I'm going to start off by reading the book, if you don't mind, and we'll get into questions afterwards. So as we're reading, comment down below your questions, and Enrique and the team there at Reading Pride will be going through your questions and filtering them for us after the whole book is read. So let's jump right into it. And also there's illustrations throughout the whole thing. I wrote an illustrated Shadow. So I'll be showing some illustrations throughout the thing. So, first is the dedication, because I think that's just as important as any other part of the book. Um, I would like to dedicate this book to my incredibly supportive family and friends who accept and support love as love. For much of my childhood, I was never taught that being gay was completely normal. That's why I've dedicated the better part of my adult life to providing LGBTQ education. My family was always there for me. My sister, Amy, was always my hero. My dad, Gene, has always been there right by my side to help me no matter what. Rebecca and Chris, my best friends in the world, have been there to help me in the dating world and build me back up after love went wrong. Most importantly, they have all been there to be my loudest and best cheerleaders when times are great or when times get rough. I owe everything to them. Thank you, Matt Haslam. And this is the story of Shadow's first Christmas. So this is the story of a puppy named Shadow and his first ever Christmas. Shadow is a 3-month-old Labrador retriever whose fur is soft and light brown. He's so cute. I love him. I loved illustrating this book just as much as writing it. He walked the streets of this big city and found scraps of food laying next to the garbage cans outside of beautiful restaurants. He would grab pieces of meat or other fancy dishes that the humans threw away, and he would run to the nearest alleyway to eat his dinner alone. When it was garbage day in the city, and the humans sadly cleaned up their messes, Shadow would walk to the park and stand beside the water fountain, waiting for the humans to sit and eat their lunches. Sometimes he would get lucky, and the humans would be too busy talking on their phones to notice they left half of their sandwich unguarded. He would stand next to the water fountain as little children and adults walked up, stood beside the fountain, and threw their shiny coins into the water as they closed their eyes and wished for something really important. There's the little park and the water fountain. But on one particular day, Shadow noticed a little girl making her wish before tossing her coin into the fountain. Shadow didn't have any coins to throw, and even if he didn't know how his paws could throw a coin. So Shadow waited for the little girl to throw her coin into the water, and he closed his eyes, hoping the little girl's coin would grant Shadow's wish as well as hers. Shadow opened his eyes, and sadly, he was still standing beside the fountain in the middle of a big park in the center of a giant city. He thought maybe his wish didn't work because maybe this fountain only works for humans. So Shadow walked away and found what was left of a cheeseburger sitting beside a garbage can. It was the best tasting thing a stray puppy could hope to find on a day in the city. A few hours passed by, and soon Shadow found himself looking for a place to sleep for the night. He walked down 7th Avenue and turned right at Christopher Street. But Shadow didn't know how to read the street signs, so they didn't help him find his way around this big city. Instead, Shadow relied on landmarks around the city to find his way to his favorite spots. It was on Christopher Street where Shadow saw these two gentlemen walking out of a building and heading towards him. The building had this giant neon sign lighting up the window saying Stonewall Inn. But Shadow didn't know it was a hangout spot for gay and transgender people. All Shadow saw was the two men walking towards him. They were holding each other's hands and smiling ear to ear. And that is what Stonewall Inn looks like, by the way. Alex, look at that cute little puppy, the one man said to the other. I wonder why he's out here alone at this late hour. The other man replied, does he have a collar? Maybe we can call his owner and help him find his way home. The other man came closer to Shadow, and soon he got so scared that he quickly ducked underneath a mailbox. He closed his eyes and wished the two humans would pass by and not hurt him. The one man's voice said, I think he's scared, Troy, but I don't see any collar around his neck. Do you think he's a stray puppy? Maybe, the other man replied. I mean, if you want, we can take him home and make sure he has a warm place to stay for the night, then come back tomorrow to see if anyone is looking for him. Before he could tell what was going on, Shadow was being lifted up into the air, and the two humans were scratching him behind his little ears. Their scratches felt amazing, and it allowed Shadow to calm down a little and feel more comfortable in their arms. Alex and Troy carried him a few blocks back to their home, and soon they were setting up a blanket for him to sleep on at the foot of their bed. The two humans grabbed some leftover chicken from a small container and ripped it into pieces. Then one of them put all of the pieces into a bowl and placed it on the floor in front of Shadow. He licked it, and it tasted much better than any of the scraps outside of the fanciest restaurants in the city. Soon, the bowl was licked clean, and his tummy was no longer growling. Before too long, it was time for the humans to go to sleep. So the humans lifted Shadow up and placed him on the blanket. But Shadow wasn't used to sleeping on top of tall things like beds, so he kept jumping down and raced under the bed, where he felt a little safer. The humans eventually gave up and went to bed themselves, leaving Shadow under the bed. The first night in a new place is always scary for a little puppy, though, so it was completely normal. When Shadow woke up in the morning, the humans cut up another piece of chicken and placed it in a bowl on the floor for him. It was normally hours before Shadow found something to eat on the streets of the big city, but with Alex and Troy, Shadow didn't have to search for something to eat anymore. Soon, the humans left for a few hours and came back talking about how no one knew of a lost dog in the area. I mean, we could keep him. He seems happy here, Alex told Troy. It would be nice to have some little paws around, and you always said you wanted a dog, so what do you want to name him? Troy replied. How about Coco? Because it's almost time for Christmas, said Alex. Or we can call him Shadow, because he always likes to hide, replied Troy. Aw, that would be so cute, Alex said, sort of like you and I hid in the closet for so many years. I love it. And so his name became Shadow. As the days passed by, Shadow got more and more attention from the two humans. He eventually got his own metal bowl for breakfast and dinner. He got a nice, comfy bed to sleep on, right beside the large bed for the humans. They even got him a few toys to play with while they were at work, and a bag of delicious kibbles, which made Shadow a very happy puppy. The humans would take him on a walk around a few city streets. The only difference now is that Shadow has a rainbow collar around his neck and a circular piece of metal attached to it with his name. His name tag jingles around whenever Shadow shakes his head, but Shadow likes to hear the sound, so he shakes his head a lot. His collar is attached to a rope that Alex and Troy hold in their one hand as they hold each other's hand with the other. Soon on his walks, Shadow began to notice the ground. I think we're still live. Ground covered in white powder, and it tasted just like water. I believe we're still live. Hold on a second. StreamYard. Okay, we are still live. I'm sorry. I got confused there. Something else popped up on my computer. Sorry. Soon on his walks, Shadow began to notice the ground was covered in white powder, and it tasted just like water. The humans all started to wear big jackets to cover over their bodies. Shadow began walking a little quicker because it was cold outside, and he didn't like the ice on his paws. But time after time, without fail, the two humans always let Shadow come back inside their home and lay down next to a warm piece of metal along the walls of their living room. Shadow didn't understand why the room suddenly had a giant tree in the middle of it, but the humans brought it inside. So Shadow thought maybe the tree was cold as well and needed a place to stay, just like him. They even decorated it with balls and lights, which made it look like it belonged in one of those fancy restaurants. Maybe the humans were opening a restaurant, Shadow thought to himself as he began staring at it. But on one particular night, the humans went to bed early. It's time to go to sleep, boy, said Troy. Shadow followed Troy into the bedroom, circled his blanket, and rested his chin on his front paws. He wasn't tired enough to go to sleep yet, but he listened as the humans talked to each other and quickly started to snore. Soon after, Shadow drifted off to sleep and chased squirrels in his dreams. Many people don't know it, but most puppies chase squirrels so they can say hello and make a new friend. When he woke up in the morning, Shadow heard many different voices close by. None of them were voices he's ever heard before. So he peeked his muzzle around the corner and saw strangers suddenly sitting on the couch and others in the kitchen helping Troy and Alex make food. Like a brave puppy, Shadow went up to the one woman standing in the kitchen and yelled at her, "Arf, arf!" But when the woman looked down, she wasn't afraid of him, and she wasn't running away. Instead, she looked at him with a smile and said, "So this is Shadow. Your pictures do not do him justice, Troy. He's so cute." "Well, Mom," Troy answered, "I'm just glad he finally decided to wake up. It's almost time to open gifts." The woman began to bend down, reaching out her hand in front of Shadow's wet little nose. Before she can bend down all the way, Shadow went running back into the bedroom as fast as his little paws would let him go. He jumped under the bed and hoped the woman wasn't following him. Shadow trusted Alex and Troy enough now that he knew they weren't going to hurt him. But all of these other people were strangers Shadow never met before. These strangers had Shadow so frightened that his tiny paws were now shaking. Quickly, Alex came into the bedroom and reached his hands under the bed to get Shadow. He held him in his arms as he began petting him and rubbing behind Shadow's little ears. "It's okay, buddy. Not so long ago, I was afraid of other people too. But then I was a brave little boy and gave them a chance. Sure, there are some bad people out there still, but eventually you'll learn how to avoid them. For now, just trust me. I won't let them hurt you. And besides, they're all family. Well, Troy's parents are my in-laws at this point, so we might as well call them your family too. So let's be brave little boys and give this another try, okay?" Alex kept holding Shadow in his arms as he walked back to the kitchen. The woman again reached out her hand in front of Shadow's nose, and this time, Shadow gave her hand a few sniffs. She then took her fingers and started scratching behind his ears. "I guess she's okay," Shadow thought to himself. "See, Shadow," Alex said calmingly to him, "I told you these people aren't going to hurt you." Soon, the humans all sat around a big wooden table, and Shadow made his way around it to see what everyone was doing. The nice woman reached down her hand, and with it, she held out a piece of turkey meat, which Shadow quickly chewed up. "Mom, he has kibbles," Troy said from across the table. "Oh, come on, it's Christmas. He's allowed to have a little extra today," the woman replied. "Your mom is right, honey," Alex replied. "Plus, it's only a little bit of turkey." Shadow waited below the table for the humans to get done eating, while he sat on the floor waiting for scraps to fall to the ground. These humans were pretty messy, but it made Shadow's belly really full. See how he's just waiting at the table. After they were done cleaning up from dinner, with little help from Shadow licking the floor and a few plates clean, the humans went to the living room and Shadow followed closely behind. Anyone who throws down scraps of turkey can't be that bad of a human, Shadow thought to himself. The humans started to bring out these shiny boxes and hand them to one another before ripping off the shiny paper and pulling out what was inside. As the packages were opened, the humans got overly excited about what was inside each and every box. Then the nice woman from earlier pushed a box in front of Shadow. With nothing but paws to rip the box open, Troy leaned over to open it for him. Inside was a pack of bright yellow balls that the humans started to throw around the living room. Shadow chased after all of them and brought each tennis ball back for everyone to throw again. In fact, all of the other 6 strangers brought Shadow more toys to play with, and Shadow was wagging his tail as fast as he could with excitement. The garbage can was almost full of wrapping paper, but there was still one gift left unopened. It was a really long package covered in red paper and topped with a green bow. Instead of handing it to another of the humans, Alex and Troy put it in front of Shadow. He sniffed the package to investigate, and it smelled like gross paper, but it had a pretty bow on top. Shadow tried to bite the bow to see how it tasted, but it was gross too. Why did the humans give me such a gross thing? Shadow began asking himself. Then Alex tore off the paper and the bow. Inside, there was a giant white bone, and it smelled amazing to Shadow. His tail started wagging back and forth at super speed. He opened his mouth as wide as he could, but he couldn't bite the whole thing. It was too big for his little teeth, but it tasted amazing. Shadow bit down on the bone and pulled it between Alex and Troy, who were sitting on the floor beside each other. He kept trying to lick and shoot on the giant bone, and his tail kept slapping back and forth between Alex and Troy. Alex reached down his hand and began to pet the fur on his belly. "Merry Christmas, Shadow." Troy continued. "Yeah, welcome home, little buddy." For the next few hours, Shadow spent his time chasing the tennis balls around the floor, playing tug of war with the humans, and chewing on his oversized bone treat. By the time the rest of the humans left the party, it was dark out, and Shadow was really tired. So he bit down on his bone and drug it all the way back to his little bed. With his mouth still wrapped around his treat, Shadow started drifting off to sleep. But on this particular night, Shadow wasn't going to dream about chasing squirrels. He didn't want to dream about playing fetch in the park with his loving owners, Alex and Troy. Instead, on this particular night, he began dreaming about the water fountain from almost a month ago. Maybe someday he'll see that little girl again who threw her coin into the water and allowed Shadow to make his wish. Hopefully her wish came true as well, Shadow began thinking to himself. But even if only one of their wishes came true, Shadow owes her a few giant licks and kisses. On that day, when the girl threw her coin into the water, Shadow wished that he would find a loving home with 2 wonderful owners who care for him. He wished that he would never have to go hunting for scraps again, other than underneath kitchen tables. He wished there would be a nice, warm bed to lay down on at the end of every day, and kibbles in a bowl, waiting for him every morning. But on this particular day, near the end of December, Alex, Troy, and the other strangers spent the whole day talking about this man named Santa Claus. The humans say he's the one who brings all the presents and grants all these holiday wishes. So maybe he's the one who granted Shadow's wish and sent Alex and Troy to give him a home. But the humans say that you can wish for anything. So that's why Shadow closed his eyes and made just one more wish to Santa that night. He wished that every other puppy walking the streets of this city alone could find 2 owners as loving as Alex and Troy. The end.
Well, thank you, Matt. That was a beautiful story. I enjoyed it myself when I read it to my children for the first time. And Shadow really lucked out with the family, it seems to be. So very, very nice of him to wish everyone, every puppy, to get a family that evening. So thank you again. I think we're ready for questions, if we have any.
And there are plenty more illustrations in the book itself. So if you use the link in the description of the video, you can get yourself a copy. It's available on Amazon right now. Amazon for a couple dollars cheaper than the signed copy, because signed copies take more shipping and stuff like that. But if you want a signed copy, they're available on that website. And there's also a link on our website to Reading Pride, so you can donate to help them in their cause as well. It's awesome.
Well, thank you for that, Matt. It looks like we had a question.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
we were asked, what was your inspiration for writing the story?
So it's kind of like a two-parter because before I came out of the closet, like, oh God, like 4 or 5 years ago, I used to write all these short stories of a gay couple conveniently named Alex and Troy. And I can give you like the inspiration of the character names and another question probably that's here. But so I used to write all these gay short stories and as a way to reach out to the community to see if my feelings were valid and as a way to kind of figure out to myself what these feelings were. And as a storyteller, I just kept writing these stories of this gay couple on romantic dates or vacations, and I would share them online. But then I felt like in writing this final story, this latest story, certainly not the final one. I'm sorry. um, uh, I felt like it was important to show it from a different perspective, sort of an origin story to how they got a puppy in all the other stories, and I decided to write it in that perspective because I saw John Oliver on Last Week Tonight do a story of Marlo Bundo book, and how he turned Mike Pence, who is this deeply homophobic vice president, he turned his bunny into a gay bunny in a story and donated all the money to charity, which was an amazing thing that Last Week Tonight did. And I decided, well, why can't we write a book too? Because I've already had 3 books at this point. So I'm like, why can't I illustrate one? So that's the inspiration for it.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for that. I've got to see that show you're talking about with the gay bunny. It sounds like it might be interesting.
It was really funny. I was like that. But
well, if you wouldn't mind sending me the link,
sure.
I'd love to check it out. Do we have another question there?
By the way, Jose is behind this scenes doing all the graphics, so thank you so much, Jose.
We just had a hello from Lisa. So how are you? And someone who missed the story, but they're going to read it. Well, thank you. I think you'll enjoy the story.
We have a lot of comments, I'm realizing. Wow.
All right. Well, let's I have a question for you.
Sure.
Part of the reason why I reached out to you and asked you to join us and do this with us is I noticed through your Facebook, through your YouTube page, Professor Pride, you offer a lot of help to teenagers who may be struggling with coming out or, feeling bullied or, even sometimes, thinking of hurting themselves. So with, today being National Day of Silence and we're really taking a stand against bullying, what advice do you have for kids that are being bullied?
Well, I mean, to touch on that first part there, I originally started my show to help just one kid out there come out of the closet because I was a kid that needed this education. And I'm very lucky that we have a team of 12 people behind the scenes now that help make the show what it is. And I'm very lucky that we're able to offer over 345 episodes of our show now to our students around the world, which is just incredible. And all these homophobic countries, especially. And you're right, we do get the amazing experience of helping kids through suicide and bullying all the time. My best advice to that, other than the episodes I've covered on depression and overcoming self-harm, I would say just the most important thing to know is that you're not alone out there. And that's why, like, even people that aren't able to subscribe to my YouTube channel or to Writing Pride's YouTube, because admit it, like if you subscribe to a channel, your parents might find out you're subscribed, and some kids can't do that yet. And I also understand people that can't go out there and buy a T-shirt or a Shadow's First Christmas book for themselves. But I wanted to like let them know that they're not alone, even though you can't publicly say that you're a part of the community yet. It does not mean you're alone. The best piece of advice I ever got in my life was when you're in the closet, you're not alone in there. There's 780 million people in the world just like you 10% of the Earth's population is LGBTQ, whether anyone in these homophobic countries or whatever wants to admit it or not, 10% of their population is LGBTQ. So we always say that you're far from alone in there, and we're all holding your hand. And just knowing that you're not alone is vital in keeping kids from depression and self-harm. And even though you're bullied in school for whatever, kids are horrible like that, and they'll bully for whatever reason. We always tell them that there's a safe place online where you can go to on our YouTube channel, and you can comment and feel like you're part of a community, because it's a safe place for LGBTQ.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So just to follow up to that, you mentioned earlier in the dedication of your book, having the support of your amazing family. They were, always very supportive of you. And that's amazing. So thank you to them for being supportive of you. But I also know that growing up in Schuylkill County, as a gay kid, is not always so easy. I was fortunate enough to live in Schuylkill County for a little while and found some of the most amazing and accepting people. That's not the case for everyone. So can you share with us a little bit about you growing up, as a gay kid in Schuylkill County, and maybe how that led you to this path where you're writing this kind of book and you're talking to kids who are being bullied and who are thinking, they're at the end of their rope, and really helping them out and making an impact on so many?
Sure. So I first kind of knew that I was gay when I was 11 years old. I was a Boy Scout and an Eagle Scout with the Boy Scouts of America, and I started really having feelings for this boy named Alex, and he comes into the book as well. So it's like I started having this huge crush on him, wanting to hold his hand on all these hiking trips or camping trips, and I didn't understand those feelings back then. And he's the first person that made me realize, like, this is who I am. I am a gay man. And so that's why his character name comes into the story of Shadow's First Christmas. But for years there, I would always have these health classes in school, and I would ask my teacher privately, how is it like being a gay person? How does this relate to being gay? Because I didn't need to learn, in my eyes, how a straight relationship works. I wanted to know the gay parts, and I wanted to learn about gay history and gay culture back in the day, and none of that was available to me. So I knew that this education was lacking in our school system desperately throughout the country. And then when I started feeling like I wanted to come out of the closet, like about 6 years ago, I started feeling that. I started listening to a lot of Troye Sivan music, and his music is if you're not familiar with his work, he's a gay singer-songwriter from Australia, one of the cutest men alive, in my opinion. But he's this songwriter that writes gay storylines in his music, and so his song Heaven was the inspiration for me coming out of the closet, and that's why I needed to pay honor to the character Troy as well. And sort of the final chapter for me before I came out of the closet, because being in entertainment industry, I have always joked around about, like, well, it's not coming out of the closet for me, it's coming out of the shadows into the spotlight, and so that's sort of where Shadow came from as a character name as well. But as I started coming out, and I realized there was all these coming out videos online that helped me massively in coming out and help all these kids come out of the closet too. But there was no real education online. This was not something found on YouTube or anywhere. And I know Glesson does a lot of education, but you have to know what Glesson is in order to find it, and without doing a massive search online, it shouldn't have to be that way. This should be in every school, and this should be mandatory in every public and private school. That way it helps the LGBTQ kids know they're normal for having these feelings, and it helps the non-LGBTQ know that their classmates are normal, so it reduces bullying and hate crimes and murder later in life. And these are all statistics that we see blatantly, and yet our lawmakers don't do anything about it. So part of my show is pushing for that legislation, but in the meantime, we're here to provide that education, and it's a way to give what I never had as a kid back to the community.
Well, thank you for that. It looks like we do have a question from Abigail, who wants to know how long have you been writing stories?
Well, it depends on what kind of stories. So gay storylines I've been writing since I was probably 15, and I started publishing them online when I was like 26 or no, earlier than that, probably like 23, 24 years old, and I'm 28 years old now. So it's been a while. I've been very, very lucky and fortunate enough to have a team around me that has helped with that. And it's helped me since I was like 9 years old, telling stories on a stage as a performer. And so it depends on your definition of writing stories, because I've been a songwriter for like 19 years now. So it depends, but yeah.
Well, thank you. We do have another question. So it says, how would you deal with depression? And it says, I'm going to a doctor now to get help. But while I'm going to a doctor, how can I get help?
Well, I know I'm going to sound silly saying this, but uh, I would honestly suggest with our show, I've been so fortunate to work with just ample amounts of like major organizations like Trevor Project, Glesson, Planned Parenthood for next week's episode. Like we're so fortunate to work with all these organizations, and so we have a series on our channel, 110 tips to overcoming depression and self-harm. It talks about this more in detail, but I don't want to like steer your viewers away from your YouTube channel. So I would say just know that you're not alone, and that the best way to overcome depression for me, because I live with it every day too, is to just take it one day at a time. Make yourself a list in the morning and say, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to make breakfast. These very small tasks that you know you can accomplish. Overcoming those small tasks makes you realize that you can accomplish things. And rather than putting this big goal in front of you all the time, it's harder to accomplish that. So making these smaller lists in the morning of what you're going to do that day definitely helps. And that helps at the end of the night going to bed and knowing, hey, look at everything I've done.
Well, thank you for that, Matt. So we have another one. So they're asking, Matt, Lisa's asking if you plan to write more books.
Yes, we are actually in the planning stages right now of a sequel to Shadow's First Christmas. More than likely going to be called Shadow's First Pride Event. I'm hoping that's the title anyway. But we're definitely planning a lot more stories in the future. I want to get artists involved in more illustrations and stuff, but we're definitely planning more. I never cease to run out of ideas, and I'm very fortunate to have, the 25,000 subscribers now that will comment something and just inspire me to write 10 more episodes or 10 more stories, so I never run out. So there's
Well,
more.
thank you for that, Matt. Just throwing it out there. In Shadow's first Christmas, Shadow was in New York City. So if Shadow's going to his first Pride event, Reading Pride has been in the city of Reading for 14 years, and we are planning to move forward with our Pride this year. So maybe Shadow will show up there.
I know at this year's Pride, we are fully planning on being there, with cameras rolling and vlogging the whole day, because I would love to come to your Pride event. So just as a shout out to the Reading Pride, it's August 22nd from 12 to 6 p.m. in Reading. So we're definitely going to try to get there with our whole crew.
Well, thank you for that. And we have another question, Matt, from Jonathan. And I'm anxious to hear the answer to this one, too, as a dad. So, what advice would you have for a parent who suspects that their kid is the bully?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. Well, obviously, I'm not a parent yet. I would definitely like to adopt one day with a boyfriend, but I would say if you suspect your child is the bully, I'm going to go with this suspicion that they're talking about specifically to an LGBTQ person in their class or something. Um, I would say education is the best thing out there for it. Show them some videos online and help them through that. Ask them if you even suspect your child is a bully of an LGBTQ person, ask them about it in just a regular conversation at dinner one day of, hey, so my friend as a parent is gay or whatever, and how do you feel about them coming over to dinner one day, or this person is trans at my work. Even if it's completely made up and a completely fictitious person, make up these stories and feel them out and see what they feel about it. And if you get back this negative connotation, then you can definitely ask them more about it and educate them on how valid being trans is, because there's thousands of scientific studies now that prove being trans is valid according to your brain, and your gender lives in your brain, not your genitals. There's thousands of studies to prove that being gay is in your DNA from the moment you're conceived to the moment you die. And most importantly here, if you actually do your research on these topics, in the top 4 religions of the world, it is not mentioned. Homosexuality is not mentioned in their original scripture at all, let alone it being a sin. So it's very interesting to see how the scripture changed over the course of history, and to know that it's not a sin to be gay either. So it's very interesting if you start doing your research on this, and education is the best result of to end homophobia, transphobia, biphobia, aphobia.
Well, thank you for that, Matt. And if I can just add to that, as a parent, I just want to echo what Matt said. Probably the most important thing you can do if you suspect your kid is the bully or is being bullied is communication. A lot of times it's simply, a misunderstanding. They don't understand why this person is that way because they've never experienced it before. We as adults experience different things, in our life that we, sometimes makes us do a double take. We never experienced it before, and we're like, "What is that?" Well, putting yourself in the child's shoes, sometimes it's as simple as that, and communication can really fix that. There are, of course, times where it isn't just communication, and it could be worse than that, worse than a misunderstanding. But it's okay as a parent not to have all the answers and to seek help. Because no one taught us how to be parents. There's no rule book. I learn new things every day, with my children and with our experiences. So, to echo what Matt said, communication is super important. And that can also be a huge tool against bullying, whether it's your kid being bullied or your kid being the bully, which would be, the worst case scenario.
And talk to your school too, and see if they can offer some communication to all their students, because maybe it's not just your child. But
that is so true. And I think that I started rambling and we might have missed a question.
yeah, sorry.
If you can't tell, both myself and Matt do like to talk. So let me get to that question. Because I want to come out to my mom as Arrow Ace, but I'm not sure exactly how to explain it to her. Any advice? I've seen the coming out advice series, but I'm still scared of her reaction and rejection.
Well, I mean, so yeah, what they're referring to there is we have an entire series with Trevor Project on our channel for coming out advice. But I would say for Arrow and Ace, it's more difficult to come out as that than gay or something that people have heard of before. I know when I came out as gay, it was a lot easier than when I came out as a gay demisexual, because people don't realize what that means. And so I would first off test the waters to know if it's safe. And if you don't feel like your parents would accept you and it's not safe for you to do that, know that it's okay to hold that information to yourself and only invite those to your party that you want to be there, that will accept you for who you are. And if you're not a 100% certain, then it's okay to hold that back for a little while until it's safe, until you live on your own or something, and that's okay too. But if you want to come out to them now, then I would say just prepare for the little tiny bit of conversation afterwards and educating them. This is how I'm feeling. Not necessarily this is the definition of ace or arrow, but this is how I'm feeling, and this is what I'm going through right now. This is me, and this is my definition of what love is. So just be ready to communicate with them and be honest, I would say, is the best answer to that.
Thank you for that. Hopefully that helps with deciding whether or not to come out. And everybody has a different time frame, and it's the best thing to do is just make sure it's safe for you to do so. Wait until it's safe and you feel comfortable, and you don't have to tell anyone except for the people you want to tell. That's the most important thing. So thank you for helping us answer that question, Matt. Do we have any other questions? I'm trying to keep track of the chat box. All right, so Emma, I want to come out, but it's hard because I know it's not safe to. So
Honestly,
what do you say to Emma?
Well, I would say when I was a kid at 11 years old, having that crush on Alex, like I was talking about, I knew that it was not safe for me in that moment, because there was one other kid in school that was bullied to no end. He would come home every day with bruises on, and I knew that wasn't safe for me. I was going to a Catholic school, so my parents, even in my eyes, thought it was a sin to be gay. And so I knew I couldn't tell anyone about this. So I broke down and held half of my life inside of me, and I'm like, I'm not going to tell anyone any emotions at all, let alone about love. And it took me 14 years to finally accept that part of myself and to tell the first person in my life, who ended up being a bisexual man, who's a very good friend of mine. And telling someone who is a part of the LGBTQ is going to be a lot easier than telling someone that isn't. So I would say, if anything, come out to someone that is already LGBTQ, because they're going to understand more probably. But like I said, I waited 14 years for that moment to be safe to come out, where I knew I finally had the money to move out on my own, and I could, if I had to, leave today. And I had a plan. I had a suitcase packed in my car ready to go just in case. But when I was 11 years old, I couldn't do that. So if you don't feel it's safe to do that right now, please realize conversion therapy is still legal in the United States. So there are many dangers that you have to realize are out there for this. And coming out is not as easy when you're under 18. So if you don't feel safe, don't come out. That's the best advice that Trevor Project and all these organizations have. But at the same time, if you're not feeling safe in your current situation, get out of that situation. If it's abusive, call the cops, call Trevor Project, or go to trevorchat.org and talk to someone now. All that kind of advice is desperately needed kind of in those moments.
Well, thank you for that. That's some really great advice there. So make sure that it is safe for you to do so before you come out. And then we have another question from Lisa, and it says, "What videos for Series 4 do you have?"
I just love hearing the kids in the background. So Series 4, we have a lot planned. So if you're not aware, our show has been on the air for 4 years now. We air our episodes every Friday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So next week, we have our first ever masterclass going to be airing on the channel, which is classroom safe. It's made for teachers to show in their classrooms around the world. It's called Gay Relationships 101. It provides from start to finish how to have a successful, sorry, I didn't mean to finish, but start to in a relationship, of a gay relationship, tells you how to communicate better with your partner, and offers you all of the advice that you possibly would need in a relationship, and be a great partner for your gay partner. We're going to start off with that masterclass next week. We have a ton planned for May, coming out advice videos, And we have 3 episodes a week airing in June, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for all of Pride Month. And we'll be airing Pottsville Pride on July 17th. We'll be vlogging Reading Pride on August 22nd. We have a ton planned over the summer, but so just keep that in mind. And all October, we have daily videos on LGBTQ history for LGBTQ History Month. So there's a lot planned. I can't say specifically what episodes are coming out because it's all like secretive, and our crew is still working on the scripts, but we have a lot.
That sounds good. It sounds like you're going to be really busy this summer. So thank you for all that hard work. We look forward to all those new episodes.
Oh, thank you, Emma. I'm glad we can be here for you.
Do you have any other questions?
Uh,
Says, I'm out to a friend who's questioning but thinks she's bi.
Biggest thing you can do is offer support for that. Bisexual double discrimination is a major thing in the community that we have an internal problem with. So just acceptance and understanding is the best thing you can give your friend while they're questioning. Don't pressure them on any certain sexuality or gender. Just let them know that you're there for them and you're willing to talk with them.
Well, thank you for that. And there was a follow-up, it looks like,
Right.
that said, I feel safer coming out to my mom than to my dad. So,
Yeah.
what do you say to that?
Well, generally speaking, and statistically speaking, moms are much more accepting than dads are, because dads sometimes feel with trans people that they're losing a daughter or a son, and they sometimes feel with a gay person or a bisexual person or pansexual and so on, that they're somehow not going to live on the family name, or that legacy is going to end in that generation because maybe you're not going to have kids, and that's okay too. But I know it's a lot of times it's harder to tell your dad. It was for me too. But I would say coming out to one. My advice has always been come out to one person at a time and let that person's strength help you come out to the next person in line. And if they accept you, that strength will carry with you and hold you through. Eventually, you're going to find one or two people that don't accept you, and that's okay. It's their fault, not yours, that they don't accept you. But if you already built up this armor through 100 people that do accept you, then you're going to be able to get through that person that doesn't accept you. So come out to your mom first, and then with your dad, keep that strength and have your mom there with you to support you no matter what your dad says.
Sounds good. Some more great advice from Matt there. Dude, we're coming right up on the hour, it looks like, that we planned for. Do we have any other, maybe one or two final questions? Matt is very busy getting ready with all those episodes that are coming all throughout the summer, so I don't want to keep him on too long. And the next question, it says, I might want to adopt a kid or two in the future. And if you don't mind, Matt,
Sure.
Seeing as how I've had this experience personally, still want to, ask your take on this, but, just if I can give a little bit of advice.
By all means.
I would say, if you do want to adopt, take your time, make sure, that you are ready. Being a parent is challenging. I will tell you, up until the pandemic, we wanted to adopt a third child. And then we had to be teachers at home and realize just how hard that was. But, ultimately, if you want to adopt, go for it. If you have enough love in your heart to share with one or two or three or five children, I'm the oldest of 10. I have five, biological siblings, and my parents adopted five more because they just weren't done. So if you have the room in your heart, to share that love, go for it. My advice would be start off with foster care. Adoption is a very, very expensive process. And there are so many children in foster care just waiting for a family to call their own, a loving home to come home to, a safe environment where they don't have to be scared. And there's so many of them, who are beyond the point of going back to their families and need a family to call their own. So that is certainly a place to start. It is where we got our start, and we're blessed with our son and daughter. So that's my take on it. Matt, do you have any thoughts?
Sure. Well, I would say adoption is definitely a great option. I would say over in vitro or any other type there for a gay couple, just out of personal opinion that you're saving a kid from a situation that might be bad. But I'm kind of lucky enough nowadays. I definitely appreciate the advice from you because you've went through that process before. But I'm so lucky on my show where we do have 345 episodes now, and we have monumental help from these amazing organizations like the Pennsylvania adoption agencies that actually helped us write an entire episode called LGBTQ adoption, and actually walks you through that step by step to show you how that process works, how expensive it is, and all the pros and cons that you might see in that situation. So I would, I feel like I'm such a bad person to just like go watch an episode, but a lot of times our scripted show is a lot more detailed on certain topics. So I would say that, but I
All right.
definitely
Well,
appreciate the advice there.
Well, thank you so much for that. So we are going to be wrapping up. I do want to say to all of you who are watching, if you are experiencing bullying or you know someone who is, there are resources. If you're looking to come out, don't feel safe for any reason, or feeling depressed or thinking of hurting yourself, you aren't alone. There's a lot of us out there who are feeling that way, especially now during a pandemic where we're, locked inside and kept away from our loved ones. Don't be afraid to reach out. There are plenty of people out there who are willing to help you. Lots of resources. Matt, and his channel being one of them, the Trevor Project, Reading Pride Celebration. Reach out to us. We certainly, as I said, may not have all the answers, just like parents don't. But we will steer you in the right direction and help you find those resources. So, with that, I want to thank Matt for taking the time to spend this evening with us as we, observe our National Day of Silence, against bullying, and broke our silence tonight to listen to Matt's story. So thank you for the amazing story. For those of you watching, don't forget you can purchase a signed copy of Matt's book from the link that he's provided. You can also get it on Amazon. If it's not signed by him, it'll come a little bit faster.
And
But
no matter
that
where
is an
I'm at, you
option.
can always get me to sign it wherever. I don't care. But if you want one shipped across the world, then you probably want to order it. But
all right. Well, that sounds good. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Matt. Thank you for our team in the background making this happen. We look forward to seeing you again in the future at our Pride Festival for August 22nd. We're hard at work planning, and we look forward to Matt's new episodes that are going to be coming out shortly. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
And thank you to Reading Pride for all of your generosity, for allowing me on this broadcast. Thank you to Jose and Enrique for all their hard work. And it's been an amazing night. So thank you.
Thank you.